Welcome to our aging puzzle. I'm your host, Corlette DeVoe. This is the last week of May. Welcome to May and goodbye, May, all at the same time. We are going to share with you some information this last week of the month from our very special guest, Dr. Gil. So I hope you stay tuned for the entire show because she's going to share some very insightful information with you about anxiety in our children. Remember, our show talks about aging and how it affects all of us. We talk about all kinds of things here that's relevant to everyday life. So we hope that you will continue to watch and continue to share our information with your friends and your family. We have one guest a month, and we have that guest here to share their journey with you week after week. And our guests have made us laugh, has made us cry, inspired us, and really just give valuable insights on current topics, health issues, and ways to live a healthier, longer life. So we look forward to an inspiring time with our guest and listening and learning and laughing and just connecting with each other. So again, thank you for joining us. We are absolutely overjoyed to continue this conversation about this very important topic. The topic is epidemic of anxiety in children. We know it's an epidemic because we have a large percentage of children that have anxiety and that are hurting themselves, and we want to figure out a way to help them. We are deeply thankful for the presence of Dr. Eliana Gil, who has been with us the entire month. And of course, we've had the pleasure of sitting down with her. She's an amazing and remarkable leader in the field of therapy. So, as I mentioned, we have one guest every month. This month, we have 5 weeks. So the first week, we spent time talking about the importance of women's health, empowering women, cultivating health, celebrating wellness and resilience. And then we had Dr. Gil join us for week 2. And during that week, she talked about what does anxiety look like. And then week 3, she talked about parenting a child with anxiety. Last week, she talked about the impact of our society on anxiety. And this week, week 5, she's going to talk about ways to overcome anxiety and thrive. So if you've missed the other 4 episodes, go back and watch us on our YouTube channel at DG Incorporated. Now, let's talk about aging facts. In a world filled with constant noise, everything's going on so fast, one topic remains really silent, and that's mental health. But I tell you folks that it's time for that to change. No more tiptoeing around the issue. It's time to talk openly and honestly about mental health because mental health matters. Recent tragedies, both close to home and across the globe, has underscored the devastating impact of depression and anxiety. And each story serves as a reminder that mental health struggles can touch anyone, anywhere, anytime. But amidst the darkness, there is a glimmer of hope, the power of our community. We must all come together to let these battles and those who are out there really dealing and battling with mental health challenges, we need to let them know that they are not alone in this fight. They are not alone. Research sheds light on the effectiveness of interventions, offering hope for those navigating the steps of despair. And studies have revealed that while antidepressants may not entirely prevent relapse, they can help lower the risk. And a groundbreaking study involving 100 individuals, those who were prescribed antidepressants experienced a notably lower relapse rate compared to those who did not. But these findings highlight the potential for long-term antidepressants and the use. We recommend looking at the options, whether it's antidepressants or not. But the journey to mental wellness extends beyond pharmaceutical interventions. It's about empowering individuals to seek help and embrace support. And through a blend of self-help practices and professional guidance, we can learn to navigate intrusive thoughts and reclaim control over our mental well-being. So seeking help isn't a sign of weakness, it's an act of courage and an opportunity to be heard and supported on the path to healing. For those out there struggling or supporting loved ones in crisis, resources are available, from suicide hotlines to crisis intervention services. Help is just a call, a text, or a click away. So don't hesitate to reach out or text 988 or visit their website at 988lifeline.org. And we especially encourage young people to text about tough subjects. Seek help safely, no matter where you are and who you're with. Now it's time to welcome our special guest. Our special guest, our distinguished guest, is Dr. Eliana Gil. She's a professional in the realm of family therapy and child counseling. Dr. Gil is the past president of the Association for Play Therapy. She's also founded the Gil Institute for Trauma Recovery and Education. Dr. Gil obtained her doctorate in family therapy from California Graduate School of Family Psychology in San Rafael, and she completed her art therapy training at George Washington University. She is the author of numerous books covering subjects from child abuse prevention to the therapeutic power of play. She has investigated and applied various therapeutic models, such as Circle of Security and TheraPlay, and has received individual certification from Dr. Bruce Perry. So we want to thank her for joining us this last week of the month, where she will discuss ways to overcome anxiety and thrive. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Gil. Welcome back, Dr. Gil. Welcome back.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yay! This is our last week, and you've been an awesome guest this month.
Thank you.
And I think we saved the most important part for the last week, which is ways to overcome anxiety and thrive. Because you said in one of the previous sessions that anxiety is not permanent. So we are happy to talk about how people can overcome anxiety and thrive in today's society. So awesome.
Great. So in the past few weeks, I've been talking a lot about some of the things we can do to help kids begin to feel more calm. And we talked about breathing, and there's lots of different types of activities that we do with breathing. Sometimes we have kids blow into a balloon. Other times we have kids lay down and they have a cup and they can watch the cup go up and down if they're breathing correctly. And breathing turns out to be a really important piece of trying to connect with the here and now, get back to your body, try to regulate your pulse and your heartbeat and all that good stuff. And so breathing is really important, or deep breathing as it's called. And then in addition to that, there's understanding about the brain. There's understanding about the amygdala that can get really kind of lit up, and how to begin to turn that flashing light off, how to begin to kind of do muscle relaxation as well. So for example, even doing something simple like making a fist and then opening your hand, making a fist, opening your hand, can be gradually relaxing to the muscles. And the same thing with the face. You know, you can have kids scrunch up their face or actually blow their cheeks out and then release, right? And all of those things turn out to really make a dent into the stillness of anxiety, because when people are afraid or worried, they tend to shut down.
So they're not breathing sometimes.
They're not breathing as well. They're not swallowing. Their muscles get constricted. And so what we're trying to do is interfere physically with that particular process. In addition to that, I think there is cognitive behavioral therapy. Now that term gets thrown around a lot, but really it's a type of therapy that's designed to show us how what we think, this kind of self-talking that we do, can affect how we feel and can affect how we behave. And so we try to work with parents and with children just with very brief examples of let's try to look at a phrase you use a lot, like I'm no good. And
Mm.
so we put that up there and we go, okay, you're no good. Now just think about that phrase, I'm no good. And as you think about it, how does it make you feel? And then kids say embarrassed or guilty or sad or
Yeah.
lonely or whatever it may be. And so then we show them that. It's like, okay, here's the thought, I'm no good. Look at all these emotions, sadness and worry and, shame or whatever else it might be. My goodness, that just seems like a lot of power given to these words. And then we say, so as you think this and feel this, what are you inclined to do? And then kids say, get in a fight, want to stay home, go to sleep, pick a fight with my brother at home or whatever it might be. And so in a way, it's like the thought, I use Post-its. That's why I keep referring to that. But the first one is the thought. Then the Post-its of a different color are the feelings, and the behaviors are on the end. It makes a little triangle. And so we talk to them about the influence the thoughts have on the feelings and the action, but it can also start with a feeling. And the
Mhm.
feeling is sadness. And when you feel sad, what do you say to yourself? I say, you're no good. And when you're saying that to yourself, what do you tend to do? And they might say, oh, then I want to pinch myself and hurt my skin. And so these are really important concepts. They work very well with kids to try to show them that they are very powerful. Kids don't have a lot of powers, but one of them is in their mind and what they can say to themselves. That's actually a power that kids have. They can reach out for help. That's another power that kids have. So we try to teach them and the cognitive behavioral approaches. And then there's also something called gradual exposure. Gradual exposure is like the number one go-to when people have phobias or big fears and big worries. And gradual exposure is, just as a quick example, I'm afraid of a snake.
Mhm.
And so I go to the doctor and I say, I'm afraid of snakes. And now my son has a pet snake in the room and I can't sleep. So gradual exposure is, well, let's look at a few pictures of baby snakes. And let's look at a little teenage looking snake. And now let's look at a snake, maybe one that has pretty colors on it or something like that. Or it might be going to a pet store and looking at them from far away. And eventually you can get someone to a place where they actually can touch a snake. Maybe the snake isn't the best example because a lot of people
I'm not sure if
won't
that's
go
the
there.
best example. There's
No, not
no way I'm going to be touching a snake, Dr.
I
Gil.
know. But
Mhm.
my point is that whatever the feared object is, you begin to kind of gradually,
Have
little
exposure.
step by little step,
Mhm.
approach it and notice that, oh, I can handle being this close to a problem, or I can handle, being this close in school when I think someone might come around and bully me. And the last thing I want to say is I've found it very effective to say to kids that one of their other powers is that can be really good investigators. And so just kind of like a scientist, an investigative mind, it's really important. And then to kind of investigate whatever their fear might be. So if they say, I'm afraid to go to a zoo because the lion could get out. Well, what if you do investigative thinking, then you can say, let's think together about that. So take a look around and see what you think. And they go, oh gosh, there are bars and there, mirrors not mirrors, but glass everywhere.
Right.
I'm not sure that animal could get out. Are you sure? Maybe we should go around and walk around and see. And so it's investigative thinking so that kids begin to understand in their own way that, that's true. It's unlikely to happen. And maybe that worry becomes just a little less big because, yeah, the chances of that happening are not great.
Mhm.
So that kind of thing. And so all of these are approaches, and you never know what's going to work best for a particular child, but they're all approaches that we try to come in with, and to say nothing of then connecting them back to their family. And
Okay.
if there is a worried parent or sibling, to make sure we're bringing them into the puzzle too, because sometimes kids are just kind of acting out what a sibling might feel, but the sibling doesn't show those things. And so that can get pretty interesting too. So it could be that the sibling is angry, but I'm going to show anger. And it's a way to kind of be connected to that other person. So it's just really important to keep the family dynamics in the back of your mind as well. But all of those are things that I think can really help children and families.
Wow, it's a lot of valuable insights, Dr. Gill. I do appreciate that.
Mm.
Uh, let's talk about the importance of self-care in children. How can teaching our children to prioritize their mental and emotional well-being from a young age contribute to their ability to manage their anxiety and thrive in the long term?
Yeah, I think this is a really important thing about just again what the parents' guidance can be about. But just kind of like we always start out with kids should know what to name their feelings. So they should be able to distinguish what is an angry feeling, what is a sad feeling, what is a hurt feeling. And what's interesting is, for example, anger, which is the thing that brings most kids to therapy. Then after that it's depression and anxiety, but sometimes it's the acting out that gets them, the squeaky wheel that gets the attention. But when you go in there and you start talking to kids about anger, anger is the way you're showing a feeling. What's right underneath the anger? And we even have a really interesting kind of wheel where kids get to use a pointer, and anger is the big one, but what was right underneath that? And sometimes the kids are able to say, I was sad. Or sometimes they go, somebody hurt my feelings, somebody called me a bad name. And so if we can begin to tie in that anger is an expression, but there's lots of different kinds of expressions that you can use. And there's lots of ways to show anger that don't involve hitting or hurting or pinching or, pushing or anything like that. And so again, it's the guidance of the parents, I think. It's really trying to help the kids name things, show things in a way that's safe, and communicate and stay in connection, emotional connection with others. So I think that's a really big, important piece of it.
Something just came to mind. Where does pain fit into all of this? You talked about they may be experiencing anger and sadness. Where does pain fall into this whole picture? Because that's
Yeah.
a big one.
It's a really big one. And I do think that sometimes the hurt feelings, the pain that kids are feeling emotionally, like not being loved or not being liked and all of that, that can just sit and fester. And as that sits and festers and grows, then it can take on a different look. And so you may have a child who's in a lot of pain emotionally, but how they react to the world is to come on like gangbusters. And I had a child once I worked with, and he would get on top of a file cabinet before I could catch him, and he'd throw himself off, and then he would stand up and he'd go, I'm strong and nothing hurts me. And it was so interesting because I felt like the way he dealt with his pain was to try to be on the offense as his best defense. So I'm not going to let anybody hurt me. I'm just going to attack people from the outset. And then that way they can't hurt me because I'll be the powerful one. So things like that are children's solutions sometimes to the pain that they're experiencing. And we need to dig a little deeper because that's just the show of it. It's like the red flashing light, but we need to go in and try to find where the paths are to what it is that is hurting children, that's making them uncomfortable or worried or feel isolated or whatever it may be.
Mhm. I had a guest on my show last year whose son was dealing with mental illness. And one of the things that he was trying to manage was his pain. And so he started taking different medication to suppress the pain. There's a lot of pain pills out there on the market.
Yeah.
And, how does the epidemic that we have in this country right now with those pain pills, how does that relate to anxiety? Because I'm so concerned, as many people are, with the epidemic that we have with
Yeah.
those pain pills, the opioids, etc. That's really detrimental to our children and to society.
I
How?
know. I
Yeah.
agree. And it's a little bit, luckily, it's still a little bit less accessible to young children. But when you get into teenage years, there's a lot of stuff out there available, and a lot of it is self-medication. And
Mhm.
so what kids kind of discover very quickly is that if I take this particular med, which is designed for something else completely different, but it makes me kind of relaxed and then I don't care about anything. And gee, I feel pretty good about myself and everything else.
Right.
And so it can disguise the pain and
Mhm.
it can make kids feel as if, oh, I've got an alternative. When I do this, I can be more myself, or I can be a different side of me might come out. So we have to be really careful about, again, education and guidance and limits. So when kids go off to school, because there's kids sharing stuff with each other these days, and we hear about overdoses, even the youngest of children. So yeah, just a lot of care. It's a war zone out there, so parents really have to be really careful about all the different things that can become problematic.
I think this goes back to, again, what you said earlier. You've been saying it every week this month. You talked about communication. And
Yes,
this is where communication is important for the families to communicate with their children. Parents communicate with their children. One, don't take anyone else's medication. If
oh
someone
God,
gives you something, right? Because
absolutely,
you don't know, someone could give your child something and you didn't tell them not to do that, and they think it's okay. Oh, my friend gave me candy, right?
absolutely. Yep,
So communicating with our children and just letting them know, a lot of things like don't take candy from strangers, don't take anyone else's medication. It's just so much we can teach our children and guide them, to keep them safe. But
right.
we just do the best that we can as parents. But like you said, communication is important.
Absolutely. Yeah, I
Absolutely.
was thinking about maybe even having a list of the things to, just putting a caution sign on and saying, just be cautious about these kinds of things. I mean, I think of my granddaughter now going to these parties at 16, and I'm thinking, oh, geez, is there going to be alcohol? And what does she know about alcohol? Does she know that people slip a little powder in alcohol and then you don't even remember? I mean, there's so many identifiable dangers out there. It's almost like most of us would like to keep our kids indoors as
That's
long as humanly possible. And yet, developmentally, they go off to high school and college. And you just have to trust that they've gotten the grounding and the foundation that they need to be able to go there and kind of manage whatever is thrown their way. I'm glad I'm a grandparent now and not a parent, because it's hard out there. I don't like the grandparenting concerns either, but I'm just saying, I can talk to their parents about stuff, but it must be really hard right now.
it's tough. I'm a parent. You know,
Yeah, there you
I
go.
don't so it's tough. It's very, very challenging. God bless our grandchildren.
Yep.
This has been an amazing month. I thank you so much. Now, as we conclude today's conversation, Dr. Gill, do you have any final advice? What final piece of advice you would like to offer to parents and caregivers who are striving to support their children in overcoming anxiety and reaching their full potential? What final advice do you have for us as we wrap up this
Yeah.
month?
A couple of things come into my mind. One is to be cautious but not paranoid. In other words, to be careful, but not to overdo it to the point that the kids feel like you're not letting them have a life. And
Right.
I think that that's important, but the caution is necessary, to be as well informed as you can about their life, about how they're spending their time, what they're interested in. And, as I said earlier, you get to a place in development where kids don't want to talk to you. You're the parent, they don't want to share with you. And that's okay because it passes. And I think that the parent sharing with the kids is equally beneficial. In other words, if you go in as a parent and you go, when I was in high school, I went to some parties where there was marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first saw that, I didn't know what to think. And then kids kept saying, just try this. And then you talk a little bit about what you did with that. And, might be completely everything is true, or you might make up alternative things. But in any case, use it as a vehicle to
Mm-hmm.
educate and talk about yourself, things I encountered when I was a kid, ways that I made myself feel better, ways that I took precautions or whatever it may be. And the third thing I think that's really important is patience. Just to really be patient, to know that sometimes there's a reason why these things are going on. And the kids might need sort of extra attention. They might need extra guidance. There might be something that you're attending to by spending time with them or communicating with them or whatever it may be. So just to be a little bit patient. Things don't go away immediately, but over time they will decrease if kids are getting their needs met, if they're getting their questions answered, and if they're developing a sense of, I really am okay. I think I know how to be in the world. I think it's going to be okay at developmentally appropriate times, because you can't overload a very young child with a lot of skills that at 5 they shouldn't need.
Right.
It's the teenager who needs critical thinking, not the 5-year-old. But you want to make sure that whatever guidance you're giving, it's age appropriate.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
those are the things. Oh, well, one last thing before I forget is, instead of reacting, being impulsive and just stop doing that or whatever it may be, to be responsive. And there's a big difference between those two things. One is done usually just out of frustration, and the other one is where you back up and you go, wow, this child is really continuously doing this. I wonder what that's about. And let me see if I can have a conversation. Or a parent who says, oh, this is not a good time for us to talk. I can feel myself. I'm all wound up. I'll
Mhm.
talk to them next week when I'm a little bit more calm, or my problems have somewhat been resolved. So just about being responsive rather than reactive. And we've said all weeks that we've talked, communication and emotional connection, helping the child feel like a part of something bigger than just him or herself.
Absolutely amazing advice. Thank you so much. Great information. And, as we conclude the epic of anxiety in children, let's remember that with understanding, as Dr. Gill said, communication, support, and the right tools, children can thrive and reach their full potential. And May is a reminder of being a special time to raise awareness for those living with mental or behavioral health issues.
Right.
So we encourage you to speak to your children, show them love, get help, reach out to anyone that you can that is an expert in the field that can be a resource to you to help you work through any type of issue that you're having with your child's anxiety. Remember, anxiety is not permanent, right, Dr. Gill?
Right. It
But
doesn't
you
have to be. Yes, you can make a dent in it.
can make a dent in it. Thank you so much for your time, your expertise, your compassion, your insights. The information you shared, Dr. Gill, was invaluable. And I hope that it is information that can help one person out there make a difference in their life. I appreciate you so
That
much.
would be wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And we will see you soon.
Thanks.
Thank you so much again to Dr. Gill for her insights and for providing information on the importance of supportive relationships in children's mental health. We want to thank her. She has been valuable. She shed light, and I hope that we were able to help one person today and throughout this month. Let's talk about habits to live longer and live better. And we do this every single week because it is so important and so vital for our lives and our well being. We recommend doing 4 things: proper diet, regular exercise, reduce your stress, people, and socialization. Socializing helps you mentally and it helps you live a longer and healthier life. So remember to do these 4 things to live longer and to live better. We want to thank our sponsor today. Our sponsor is Remember To. Remember To is a revolutionary AI driven platform for seniors to help them stay safe, stay connected, and to live independently. If you'd like to learn more about Remember To, visit their website at remember2.ai. That is remember2.ai. Again, thank you to our guest for this month, Dr. Eliana Gil. We appreciate you. And everyone, we will see you next week. Thank you for joining us. Voila.
Hi, Mom.
An original shark from Shark Tank. DG Incorporated provides coaching services to help entrepreneurs open and grow assisted living facilities and build economic wealth. Visit their website to learn more.